Isn't the purpose of the videos to say that being honest and open and vulnerable and authentic is a strong, powerful man? Like, you want to spend time with characters that are honest and genuine. That's how vulnerability, as we were saying before, is magnetic. If someone's not vulnerable, you're put off by them. We've all met people that there's a relational distance because they're not prepared to be honest or real. If they enabled themselves to drop all that, maybe shared a bit of shame or a bit of like how they've struggled that week, immediately the other person's drawn in.
Yeah, that's right.
Straight away.
Yeah. There's a definition of a man that society has painted for us that doesn't include being open and vulnerable, and I think that in of its own right is actually a problem. That's why we need to address it in these videos, really. There's an incredible power in vulnerability.
And I think we all live with like these secrets and these hidden things that maybe we do in our lives, or we've done in our past, or regrets that we've had. There's a lot of shame there, and we don't share or talk about them because we're scared of what people might think of us, or we're scared of becoming vulnerable or opening up or becoming emotional. And that doesn't fit the masculine stereotype of you've got to be strong, you've got to show people you've got your life together.
Hi, welcome back everyone. My name's John, and Gary's here as well, and today we're going to be looking at the reason why we're doing this podcast, the reason why we're making these videos, and why we believe they are important in today's society. Let's dive in. Why are we making these videos, Gary? Have you got any thoughts off the top of your head?
Yeah, from my perspective, I think our counselling journey led us here, didn't it? Which was, we discovered as part of our counselling journey that it was really important to be more and more authentic. And I think we discovered through the stories that you shared that you weren't as authentic as you wanted to be. So you were masking a lot out there in the world and trying to be a version of yourself that you thought other people wanted you to be. You were shutting yourself down. Lots of unspoken thoughts and feelings. So we want these videos to address that. Like, we want to be more authentic ourselves. I want to be more authentic. I think you want to be more authentic.
Yeah, definitely.
Although, like, sometimes when these videos are off, we've discussed between ourselves, like, are we being too authentic? Are people interested in us being this authentic? There's been some insecurities, hasn't there, in you and in me about are we oversharing, or do people want to hear about all this crap in our lives? Like, are they interested?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that is a bit of a worry of mine, but equally I think, like you say, my desire is that hopefully these topics that we talk about are helping people out in a real way, because I went through a lot of my life, like you say, sort of masking, covering up all my mess, and pretending it wasn't there. So I was sort of living this whole fake denial sort of life, really. And my concern really is a lot of people are doing that, and particularly men. I think, men in particular are quite good at sort of concealing their emotions and not sort of crying, not letting the emotions out. And that was me, really. I just sort of went through life emotionless, trying to look the best I could for whatever the situation was I was in. And I reckon there's probably a lot of men that are probably feeling quite isolated because they're doing that type of thing, because they're sort of covering up what's going on in their real lives. So I don't know whether is that the general vibe you get from sort of your history of counselling in general, like.
I think like it's important for you. Sometimes stereotypes are there for a reason, aren't they? And I think it was important that you mentioned men, because as a general rule, still in today's society, less men go to counselling than women. So often women are more free and able and in touch with their feelings and able to talk about their lives a bit more. Men, I've found as a general rule, tend to hide a bit more, and they're a bit more secretive, they're a bit more isolated. And I think, like, as you were just thinking then, I was thinking, why do men not open up? Why do I not open up? And I think we all live with like these secrets and these hidden things that maybe we do in our lives, or we've done in our past, or regrets that we've had. And there's a lot of shame there, and we don't share or talk about them because we're scared of what people might think of us, or we're scared of becoming vulnerable or opening up or becoming emotional, and that doesn't fit the masculine stereotype of you've got to be strong, you've got to show people you've got your life together.
Yeah, exactly.
And I just don't think that is strong or masculine. I think to cry or to weep is strong.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's reversed.
Well, it's in a way, yeah, exactly, because in a way you're being brave, aren't you, with sharing. You're actually being brave, which if you think of like the classic sort of man in the movies, the man who, the hero in the movies is the person who's brave, like Braveheart or something like that.
But that's often shown as physical violence.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. Yeah, it's shown as physical violence and sort of muscles and stuff like that. But I think there's to have the full picture of the man, like a strong man, is to have someone who's being brave with their emotions and sharing as well. So yeah, I think that's a big deal, really. And for me, I mean, I've grown up in church all my life, and I think there's quite a sort of a pressure in church culture in general, because you've got the Bible here, that sort of has the Ten Commandments and all the sort of do's and don'ts of how to live in a way, and often in our sort of natural nature we don't sort of live up to the Bible very well, even as Christians. We don't, and I think for me a big part of wearing the mask was to make myself look like I was doing better than I actually was, because in church I often don't feel like I can just express that actually I'm feeling really rubbish today and stuff like that. You feel like you have to sort of be positive and live on the happy end of the spectrum. That's the pressure I put on myself. I'm not saying that church has done that to me necessarily, but certainly the pressure I put on myself is to put a happy side of life.
But then you start to live a divided life, don't you? And that's where the concealment begins, because if you have to be a version of yourself at church to appear to others that you're someone that obeys all these commandments or rules and that you've got your life together, but you haven't, but you're trying to demonstrate that you have, the concealment begins, and then you live a divided life. So you live two different lives.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
A Sunday morning or a church life.
Yeah.
And then a much darker world then begins to exist.
Yeah, and that's
a hidden life.
That's me to a T. Yeah, I think for a lot of my early days, I was a lot more, say, passionate about God. I would go out on the streets and talk about Jesus and things like that. And I was quite a radical, sort of crazy Christian that probably put a lot of people off, to be honest. Which in sort of Christianity, you sort of is sort of esteemed in a way that, oh, well done, you're sort of, you're enthusiastic about Jesus. You're lifting your hands in church, and you're sort of going on the streets and talking about him and praying for people and stuff like that. I think for me it changed when I hit sort of an emotional block with someone, just something that happened in my life, and I just felt emotionally drained, emotionally discouraged, emotionally depressed, and that's particularly where
that divide
began. Yeah, I mean, it was there before as well, because I definitely wasn't, all, on cloud nine every day type thing. That's for sure. But you put on a bit of a facade that
so you presented that you were on cloud nine.
Yeah.
But at this particular point in your life, something hit you emotionally, but you didn't believe you could share those emotions or bring those emotions because it demonstrated that you weren't on cloud nine.
Yeah.
So you hid them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I hid them. I carried on presenting that I was sort of on cloud nine.
But you lost John.
But I sort of lost John in the process, and it made me depressed, quite long term depressed.
So isn't that interesting? If you live that divided life, depression's not far away.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, depression's
it's not sustainable to live two lives. It's hard to live one life.
Yeah.
So it's not really sustainable to live two, is it?
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I do feel, even in church in general, like you. In a way, you sort of feel like you're capping yourself, because actually you just want to be really honest and say, actually, when I read the Bible, I'm not actually feeling what that's saying. Like I feel disconnected from it. I want to be in that place, but I'm not, and I'm not sure how to get there. But I think sometimes in church it feels like a lack of honest conversations, which concerns me, and that's why we're doing these videos ultimately. Yeah,
because what you were just sharing then is like if you do read the Bible and find a particular bit difficult, or it doesn't resonate with you, or it's challenging, or it doesn't make sense, and if you share that, you then bring the hidden John to the outward John, and you're the same person.
Yeah.
But if you keep it buried and you're like, yeah, I'll get it, I understand, yeah, I'm living like that.
Yeah.
Then you're encouraging the divide, aren't you? And
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
And like you can create a culture that's like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And since starting counselling, where we sort of began to look at all these things about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I have become a lot more authentic publicly, like in general. I mean, I still, to a degree, when people see me sort of out and about, I'm wearing my mask because I don't feel like I can open up and be honest and share what I share with you all the time, with everyone on the street. Although I seem to have the courage to make these videos. Somehow.
Yeah, but you've that's an interesting thing that you're talking about, because it might be worth you opening up a little bit about how you've doubted yourself around making these videos in terms of being that hidden John, being out there in the public eye a little bit more, if you like, and putting yourself out there on the videos. We've had discussions offline, if you like, about how you've doubted that. Like, should I share this stuff with people?
Yeah,
Am I
that's
being
right.
too vulnerable?
I think I'm over evaluating it because I'm sort of very sort of driven by, if we had 7,000 views on a video, it would encourage me greatly, type thing. But we're getting like 13, 14, 40, which is completely fine. And so I'm just evaluating. Okay, why is that then? And I would like people's feedback in a way. Are these videos too raw, too weird? Is it like just watching John have a counselling session? Because that's not the intention. I really appreciate people's, people who are watching, some feedback on what they think genuinely, honestly and authentically, even if it's criticism. So
and your fear is the people that aren't watching, or maybe watched at the beginning, because some of the early ones had a few more views, but they're not watching now. Your fear is, they've decided to stop watching because they don't want to hear about all of my hidden secret world, the stuff that I struggle with. It's not relating to them, therefore they're checking out. So it's like it's almost like your insecurities are coming out in what you're saying.
Definitely, yeah. But also I recognise that I'm not the be end all of life. Like, so other people probably come into this room with, cases of rape and like family members dying and things like that, both of which I don't really have much experience with. So in a way, I would love to bring in other people who have experienced other things to talk like this, but I think I'm not sure, it takes a lot of courage, obviously, to come in here and sort of share about stuff that's hard. But in a way, that's what I'd like for us to get to, is bringing other people in to share and thrash through topics that I haven't experienced necessarily.
Yeah, so it might be worthwhile us, like even within this video, inviting, like, so if any of you are out there and you're thinking about, you want to be more honest or vulnerable or open, then we want to create this space for you to share if you've had a loss or a bereavement, or you're struggling in a particular way. We want to involve other people,
definitely,
and allow them to be authentic and honest, and get their message out there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't want it to be about me or you or both of us. I want it to be about helping people out, really, in a really raw and honest way, that actually really sort of moves people forward in their pain, as opposed to sort of sitting there feeling isolated and thinking that they're all alone, and because that's not the truth at all. So other people have suffered similar things and can really help people out.
So what do you think is a main limitation of people being authentic or honest or brave, or so we're almost like inviting others into this space? What do you think might limit someone?
Well, I think first,
what limits you?
Yeah, what limits me? I mean, I'm just thinking, going back to walking in here for the very first time, it was sharing shameful stuff was the hardest thing, and I wanted to come in here to share shameful stuff, but didn't feel, I didn't know you. I didn't know whether I could trust you, So I think over time I realised I could trust you, and actually there's an incredible power in vulnerability. I think fairly early on you said vulnerability is like a magnet. It sort of sucks people in and draws people to you. It doesn't push people away. Because obviously if someone's cocky and sort of all that, it sort of you get a sort of an anti-them sort of vibe, don't you, if you're on the receiving end of that. Whereas if you're listening to someone being vulnerable and opening up, you also open up and sort of draw towards them. For me, I think the hardest thing is just to be real, really, because we want to come across as a strong person. Ultimately, we want our street cred to be up there. Now, over time, my street cred has been fairly low all my life, largely because I've had a limp, I've been rubbish at sport, been overweight, etc., etc. So all these things, my street cred has just, not really been very high. So I think that's probably why I can bring myself to do this, whereas other people might struggle a bit more.
Oh, you felt they'd fall further from like a pedestal, if you like, whereas your
well
pedestal was lower anyway,
I'm well
so you had less far to fall. Is that what you're saying?
It's that type of thing, yeah. I mean, I just, my street cred has always been pretty low, really, so I've
that in itself's quite a vulnerable thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah, because I don't want it to be, and in a way I do feel a bit emotional about that, because I would like it to be higher, and I'd like people to look up to me as like this strong, powerful man who can do loads of things. But over time I've learned that I can't do very well.
But aren't we showing isn't the purpose of the videos to say that being honest and open and vulnerable and authentic is a strong, powerful man? So you're almost kind of like and your emotions were being hit in that moment, weren't they? Because you were thinking, no, I still want to be viewed in a certain way, but by doing this, it kind of makes me fall from a pedestal that was quite low anyway. And then people were going to, see all my vulnerabilities and think I'm weak and insecure and rubbish. But the whole idea is, no, but by being this way, means you're a strong man. It's almost like even in this session, you're fighting with that.
I think in society, though, it's not like that, is it? In reality, the reality is the strong people are the muscly people, the ones who can play sport, the ones who get the girls, who can do all the stuff who are sort of practical around the house and things like that. There's a definition of a man that society has painted for us that doesn't include being open and vulnerable, and I think that in of its own right is actually a problem. And that's why we need to address it in these videos, really. What was that? Wasp there.
But if you come across that type of guy, I'm a bit scared of us, that appears to have it all together. We've spoken before that, like, you could, on a relational level, you can get quite put off by that type of person if they're not honest and open and vulnerable. Like, so if somebody is maybe good at sport or muscly or strong, which is fine. But if they're then arrogant with it, or they wear a presentational self with it, people don't want to spend time with those sort of characters. Like, you want to spend time with characters that are honest and genuine. That's how vulnerability, as we were saying before, is magnetic. If someone's not vulnerable, you're put off by them. We've all met people, regardless of whether they're muscly or not, that there's a relational distance because they're not prepared to be honest or real. And maybe they're caught up with trying to prove themselves to you, and sometimes you can even see it. They're working so hard to say how amazing they are. You're like, oh my god, I'm a bit put off by them, or I'm a bit bored, or I'm a bit like, who wants to listen to you say about how amazing you are for like an hour at a pub drinking a beer? Do you know what I mean? They're they're not seeking connection.
They're not focused on you either, are they?
No,
they're just consumed with how amazing they are.
And it's not really. It's not about connection either, is it?
No.
But if they enabled themselves to drop all that, maybe shared a bit of shame, or a bit of like how they've struggled that week, and immediately the other person's drawn in.
That's right.
Straight away.
And this is what I think we're sort of missing in church in a way, generally. I'm not pointing my finger at any individuals or any churches in particular, but in church we're presenting the best possible version, and we're not seeing the reality. So people are seeing the glossed up version a lot of the time of us, and are therefore not drawn to us in church, and sort of it comes across as fake or as not real, and they're not connecting. There's a disconnect there that they're feeling internally, and this is why it's important to lower that barrier, and try and sort of be open and then hopefully connect with people when we're vulnerable. Yeah.
Do you think part of it, like, is it because you're almost like you keep coming back to church experience?
Yeah.
Do you think part of it is that Christians have in their head that they've somehow got to be perfect, and that comes from maybe some verses or some stuff in the Bible?
Yeah.
I don't know, I can think of one that says, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect."
Yeah.
Do you think there's a pressure that, regardless of other people, but that individuals apply to themselves?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've got to be perfect, and
Definitely.
then they feel immediately that distance from that, because they've got their own shameful inner world where they do things that are not perfect.
Yeah.
And then kind of, I was just thinking to myself, like, is it about church, going to church and like worrying about whether I'm perfect or not? Or is it about me individually worrying about whether I'm perfect or not?
Yeah.
So I think that comes into it too. I'm sat here thinking, in no time at all, I could shut my eyes and feel a load of guilt, whether you were here or not, about how I'm not perfect. And really, it's got nothing to do with anyone else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
that's
inside
it.
me.
I think you said to me earlier that you're your own best critic or whatever. And,
worst critic,
yeah. And that's true. I think we're all very harsh judges of our own lives. Well, some people are anyway. Some people who probably don't judge themselves, probably a bit more healthier in their mental health, I would have thought.
But often that's hidden from people, isn't it?
Yeah.
How harsh we are to ourselves.
Yeah.
Is part of that hidden world.
Yeah,
like
that's it.
I don't know how many times you've heard me come up to you on camera or off camera and say, this is what my critical voice has said to me this week. This is some of the stuff I've been through.
Yeah.
Probably not that often.
Not that often, no. No, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, it's funny really, but I think this is why we're doing this is to be more honest and open with people, so that ultimately they don't feel alone. Yeah. Yeah. So one question I could just ask you is, what do you think people's mental health is like if they're continually living in that mask and in that sort of presentational zone?
I think it's probably not in a very good place. And the words that come to me as you ask me the question are words like loneliness and isolation.
Yeah.
So if you live in a place internally that you never share with anybody else, and you don't like that place, and that's why you're keeping it hidden and private, that's very isolating and very lonely.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't want to be in that place.
No.
But you're not asking or seeking any help. So, like, in a way, you're fighting that battle alone.
Yeah.
And then, like, it's driving you more and more into a hidden world, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like, you're shutting everybody else out. So, from a mental health perspective, I could imagine kind of internal voices like, no one loves you. Or... if people knew the real you, they'd abandon you.
Yeah.
You've got to keep this hidden.
And over your time of counselling, have you seen people who have isolated themselves and closed themselves down, and how has that sort of impacted?
Not just counselling, but in life.
Yeah.
To the point of suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if it becomes very extreme, the divided life is too great. And it's too lonely and it's too isolating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think loneliness and isolation is a big reason for why people would take their own life.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I think it's sort of the belief that you're isolated as well, isn't it? Because often, actually, you're not isolated.
You just don't think people will accept you.
No,
and that's why you're hiding it.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be isolated, but you make yourself
isolated.
isolated.
Yeah, you believe the message that you're sending yourself, that if you were the real you, nobody would love you, nobody would accept you. If you said your unspoken thoughts, your shameful thoughts, if you spoke about your things that you've done in your past, all your regrets, got it out there, all that out on the table, every human being would reject you. That's the fear. So you keep it all to yourself, and the more you keep it to yourself, and then the less you share, the more you drive yourself into loneliness and isolation. And like, no man's an island. Like, we're not meant to exist like that.
No,
like it's not healthy.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. And I think over time, I would say that in terms of friendships, because I've been wearing a mask, don't have many great friends, to be honest, as in like I haven't opened myself up well enough to cultivate friendships very well.
Yeah, so if you hadn't come to counselling and you kept that area of life where you didn't have any friendships, and you weren't open to your wife, and you didn't maybe meet up with mum and dad, and you just started to shut people out of your life, and it was only John then, and you just went to work and you didn't have any friends or family because you cut everybody else off because you didn't feel that you'd be accepted, where would it drive you? Where would it drive you?
Suicide, I think, to be honest. I think so, because I mean, thankfully I'm very open with my wife. Like, she knows pretty much everything about me. It's just the way we are. But I think if I didn't have that, I would be if I was masking to my wife or masking to people that were very close in my life, then that's a very dangerous place to be, isn't it?
You're almost in a way answering your own question by looking at your own life.
Yeah, that's it.
And like that's the way where we often find answers, isn't it? If you've got a question like, where would your mental health be if you continually masked, and then you use your own life to look at it, you can think, oh, I've got an idea of where my mental health would be. I wonder if other people's mental health would be in that place.
Exactly, yeah. No, that's
Some people, like, I think, also part of being okay in your mental health is the ability to make friends with yourself. So I think that, that's a slightly separate issue in that, no man is an island and we shouldn't be that lonely or isolated. But if you're an enemy of yourself, then it's much more dangerous. But if you've made friends with yourself internally, obviously then it's not quite as dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. In a way, I'd like to hear people talk like this who are friends with themselves, because in my head, like, I've just been very anti myself all my life. I don't know why. I think it's probably or my weak left side and all the various things, but I think that's true. If you're combining the mask with being anti with yourself and putting those two things together, it's a very dangerous combination.
It's very potent.
Whereas if you love yourself and you're still like presenting a mask, then it's better, isn't it?
I mean, you're probably not presenting much of a mask if you love yourself.
It's true,
if you think about it, like, the two are almost linked, aren't they? So if internally, if I love myself, then I'm less likely to mask.
That's right.
Because I believe that I'm going to be accepted. Because I accept myself.
Because it comes down to this belief of I'm not going to be accepted, doesn't it? So you reject yourself because you believe you're not going to be accepted, whereas that's actually a lie. It's a bit like Inception, isn't it? All these little things get into the safe. If you've watched Inception, there's a bit where they plant a message in the safe or something like that. In the safe of our mind, we sort of get all these negative thoughts sort of locked away that become us ultimately, and we've got to try and change those thoughts, and counselling has been a tremendous help for me to do that. So just sort of encourage anyone who hasn't been to counselling, even if you think you're pretty well put together, it's well worth it, because there's definitely things in your life that can be sort of unravelled that you didn't know were even a problem. So cool. Well, thanks very much, guys.
Good to see you, John.